A test for a Yale student who recently traveled to Liberia also negative. First responders in Nassau County getting important training about how to recognize and handle any possible Ebola patients here on the island. News 12 Long Island's Virginia Huey has that story.
All responders have concerns about Ebola.
East Meadow EMT E.J. Brennan among more than 200 first responders who packed a class at NUMC to learn how to deal with possible Ebola cases. Their training has become a priority since they may be the first to come in contact with patients if any arrive on Long Island.
With this case of Ebola, the disease is so virulent and it could be potentially spread through body fluids that I want them to be prepared if they do go into one of these cases to have the right proper PPE protective equipment on.
Dr. Victor Politi says first responders should be outfitted with protective suits, masks, gloves, and hoods before treating and transporting a potentially infected patient.
It's important to know how to protect yourself, and not only when putting the equipment on, how to properly take it off, so that way you don't infect yourself.
Because it's easy to put the suit on when it's clean, but once you have some contamination on it and you're trying to remove it, you don't want to get that contaminant on your skin.
More than 4,000 people have died so far in the Ebola outbreak, which has ravaged parts of West Africa. 5 major airports in the U.S. stepped up screening procedures over the weekend to test travelers from West Africa for the deadly virus.
All procedures should be looked at.
But Congressman Peter King says the airports aren't doing enough to protect the traveling public from Ebola. He called on the Department of Homeland Security to consider imposing stricter guidelines.
The fact that people who could be contaminated can walk through the airport, use restrooms, and be exposed to the general public the way they are, and all the other passengers. To me, this is something that has to be relooked at, and immediately.
Congressman King also says the U.S. should ban all flights coming in from West Africa and suspend visas issued to people living in those nations to keep them from taking an indirect route to the U.S. He said the ban should be in effect until the Ebola outbreak is under control. Elise.
Virginia, thank you. Another Long Island congressman is also focused on ways to reduce the threat of Ebola. Today, Steve Israel